Hi everyone. Our guest today has a story that should inspire every late bloomer out there. Bryan Soo didn't touch a piano until the age of 15, yet he quickly progressed and went on to become a LaSalle Distinguished Performer. Now a globally recognized pianist, educator, and the founder of BeSpokeArts, Bryan has performed on major stages from Berlin to Tokyo. Bryan, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. So we'll start with the questions. You
Sure.
began playing the piano at the late age of 15, yet you quickly progressed in just 3 years. Was there any specific moment that influenced you to pursue a career in music?
Y- yes. There is a practical one, and there's also kind of like one that's just out of passion. So I came to learn about music in a very odd way. It was basically just through like YouTube piano music, and then that was what set me to start learning piano at the very beginning. And then I only had like a one of those 61 keys keyboard, those digital ones. Yeah, and then I started off with that. And then back then it was just an interest at the very beginning. And then let me think. I think maybe about somewhere within into it about a year or two. And then I realized like I really like this thing and I would like to do it like for a career. But also like where I'm from and like my family background, we're not like super well to do. We're probably like below average income at that point. So like I think the very practical question I had at that time was like or like the issue I faced was like I don't think I got enough funds to study music to do it as a career. So like even though my interest was still very high, I think I quite quickly at 17 years old, so I kind of quickly kicked the thought out of my head. I was like, probably not possible. Until at 18, I met like my first proper teacher. And then he told me like actually, like there's a lot of like ways to get like scholarships and like support, and like actually it's much more possible than you think. Basically he like enlightened me in the practical sense, so that's why I was mentioning about the practical part of it was then. So that was about like 18 years old when I met him, and then he was telling me like, it's really possible, you should like attempt it. So then I think that was when I realized I really wanted to do this for a career.
Yeah, that was an inspiring story. It seems like your teacher was really the defining moment who inspired you to start.
Yeah, he was. I'll add something interesting into the story. So at that point, actually, before that, I kind of had a teacher before that, but basically for the most part, I was kind of self-taught because that teacher didn't really teach me anything new. I had him for like a very short period of time. And then when I went to this second teacher, the more serious one at 18 years old, he hadn't heard me play yet while he was telling me all those things. So like I was only basically telling him like I have like a huge passion in music. I like really want to learn properly how to play everything, yada yada yada. And then he was like inspiring, motivating me after hearing my passion. And then after so he was telling me how possible it was and everything. And then right after that he said, okay, great, now let's hear you play. And that was such a terrible moment. I remember because at that point, so I was 18, but I actually I was still playing really badly at that point. And uh a big problem was that I didn't really know I was playing very badly prior to that a little bit more because I never had like any friends or family members that play music or does music. So I had no idea like I was bad. And then from my first teacher, he was telling me basically I was good. So I was in my head thinking I'm pretty good. And then came the embarrassing moment when the second teacher told me to play through, and then I played through. And then he was like I remember his expression. He was just like, oh my gosh, what am I dealing with? And what did I just inspire? Like after telling this guy like it's possible to do music, you can get support, like you can definitely get a career and everything. And then like yeah, he gave me the face of like despair. I remember that was quite funny.
Yeah, your passion really stands out. I think everyone experiences like a moment when your passion is ahead of your ability, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, you've performed works ranging from Mozart's concertos to Poulenc's improvisations. Do you have a favorite piece or composer?
Um, I think my favorite piece right now, it's so tough. My favorite piece usually is kind of the thing that I am performing or playing at the moment. So that happens to be Scriabin's Fantasy in B minor. So that's kind of my favorite piece at the moment. Um, and composer wise, I don't know. Lately, I've been listening to more like Russian composers like Scriabin and Rachmaninoff, and I think in terms of like just the music, I think probably my favorite would be amongst these two. But in terms of like the composer and how the composer writes, the composer's story and everything, I think I like Chopin a lot as well.
That's
Yeah.
interesting because when I learned Scriabin's Fantasy, um I was like really loving it, and I can really relate to how you get to really love your piece when you start learning it. And Chopin's
Yeah,
also my favorite composer.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It's like whatever I'm learning always seems to kind of become the favorite piece of the time. And I guess it has to be, then you can put up a good performance. If not, then it's also kind of tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Musicians have mentioned that you have a beautiful and expressive sound. Which particular composer's works or types of pieces do you think you perform the best?
Um, this is somewhat to my surprise a little bit because like from my perspective, I kind of always thought like I play Chopin really well. And then recently after playing more Russian music, I've been told that I play like my Russian music is the best among what I play. So like Scriabin, like Rachmaninoff, and um actually even like Poulenc. A lot of people said like my Poulenc, the Poulenc's tone of my playing really fit me. So I think probably Poulenc or Scriabin. Yeah.
Oh, I've never tried Poulenc's pieces, but I think Russian music, you definitely get to like put all of your energy into the music, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah. You should try. Poulenc is really really fun, really fun, and especially his improvisations. It's very French, but also the way he writes is almost like so improvisatory at many moments. It's very fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really fun. I'll try it out. You've performed at prestigious venues like the Yonsiu-To Concert Hall and the UDK Concert Cell in Berlin. Which performance are you most proud of or resonates with you the most?
Uh, it's really hard to say, honestly. Like, let me think. Like, I think the most impressive moment, like from my perspective, not from like a public perspective, was like probably UDK concert hall because it was a huge crowd and like just having so many people connect with the music was really impressive in really in the definition of the word itself. It was a very impressive moment and that left a huge impression. Um, However, I think the one I hold closest to my heart might be in a salon in Japan. Because I don't know, for me, I always kind of had a very big personal liking or taste towards smaller venues and like salons, like about 50 to 100 people. And I think venues like that always like I feel the closest with the audience. And like I know like everything I'm doing and every moment in the music is really being shared with everyone. Whereas in a concert hall, you can kind of sense like not everyone is with you just because the space is so big, right? Yeah. But in like a salon, it's like you know everyone's with you with the music. Yeah. I think so that's the most personal one.
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons for like bigger venues and smaller venues. But yeah, those salons provide really like a warm atmosphere.
Yeah.
You've studied with and received master classes from a variety of musicians and professors. Which musician do you like the most, or are you most influenced by?
It's such a tricky question. I hope none of them are watching this. Let me think through actually. Most influenced by I think it's so tough. From the classes themselves, it's really hard to say, but if it's Chopin's music, I would say like one of my great friends and also a great professor like Gregory Niemczuk, Polish pianist. He gave me a master class once, and also my good friend. Um, and I think his Chopin is the most convincing to me, and that has taken a huge impact on the way I look at Chopin as well. But although I say that, but like a lot of the things I choose to do in Chopin still are not things he would do. So like maybe I took away, I think it impacted me about 40 to 50% of the way I see Chopin, maybe. But listening, just purely listening to the way he plays, I think has a huge impact to me. And in terms of like Russian music, my principal teacher I studied with, who was Mr. Clarence Lee, a great Singaporean pianist. Um, I think he influenced me a lot in terms of Russian technique and Russian sound. Definitely like huge macro structures of music. He definitely influenced me a lot in terms of that. And then who else? I think in terms of people not on the list of professors or pianists I had classes with, um, is legendary pianist like Joseph Hoffman. Do you know Joseph Hoffman?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, American pianist, like amazing. So in terms of performance and stature, like he's hands down probably the pianist that I admire the most. The way he takes the music is just on another level, and I think like nobody does it like that now anymore nowadays. Which is a pity, but also I understand why. But in terms of the most inspiring performer in that sense, Joseph Hoffman.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you have like different people who've influenced you for different like genres, like Russian music and Chopin's music. And we actually interviewed Greg like very recently.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, because I used to watch his like lectures on YouTube.
Great. How is he? When was that?
It was around 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's nice. He's really busy recently because he just had a son, and but it's great. He's such a wonderful guy.
Yeah, it was amazing. The next question would be, you are very involved in artistic curation through BeSpokeArts. What do you do off stage that inspires your musical artistry on stage?
Hmm. Well, I think to answer the question like generically first, I think like a lot of things, all right, or like rather almost everything you do off stage kind of tells your character and tells like what kind of person you are. And that does always in all aspects translate on stage. Um, like for example, if you're a very adventurous person, you like to go to a lot of new places, you like to explore a lot of new things, then naturally your music will sound more explorative and it won't sound as restrictive maybe in that sense. Can't think of the perfect word for it, but to answer a bit more specifically, I think one of the things I do that I relate very closely to music and playing the piano is actually coffee. uh, so I do my like I do filter coffee in the morning every day. It's kind of like a part of my routine that always grounds me and make sure I have a slow and a good start to the day. And I think coffee making is so similar to piano playing. There's like a lot of details into it and so many variables that affect the end result, and the end result will always be different even though you try to maintain every single variable to the same standard. Like for example, if we have like temperature to take care of grind size, your pouring distance, pouring rate, and whatever many technical things. But like let's say even if you do manage to keep all of them the same, it's impossible to pour in the same exact way every time. So even that will change the result slightly. And that's very similar to like piano playing. Whereas where like even being in a different environment, like a different hall, might inspire you in a different way that might make you play the music slightly different, and then that will end up with a different result. So in terms of that, I think one of the biggest things that inspire me off stage is coffee making.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, around like a year ago, we had another musician who talked about his filter coffee and how it's really similar to piano.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, like there's also, so like I once went to Japan, who Kyoto had one of the top coffee roasters in the world, ranked number three in the world. They're called Soaked Coffee. And I tried their coffee then. I just kind of passed by and it was so good. Like it was one of the best coffees I ever had. And then like now I contacted them, and then now they're one of my main sponsors for a lot of my events and a lot of my concerts. So like I just want to say that they also see this vision where like music and coffee making has a lot in common, and I think that's just so interesting. Like when I reached out to them, I never thought like it would become anything. I just wanted to tell them like, hey, your coffee is so great, but like eventually became something which was amazing.
Oh wow, that's amazing. The next question would be, because you started at 15 and progressed so rapidly, you must have a very efficient way of learning. Do you have any unique practice techniques or routines?
um I have so many. But I would say that practice wasn't always efficient, especially at the beginning, when I didn't have much like guidance. It was just a lot of quantity and a lot of repetition in a very redundant way. And like I will practice for like eight hours or something, like when I was 15. Like the mo back when I just came across music, I would like be practicing for 6 to 8 hours. Uh, but after that, when I learned proper techniques and stuff, there are a lot of things that I use, especially like now when I have very limited practice time, to make sure I'm still making as much progress as I can. And one of these things that you will hear people say very often is recording. Number one, recording yourself. That is a huge one because immediately you can tell a lot of things that need to be changed. Then I would take the recording and literally just make notes off of it. The same way I would teach a student. I would do that for myself. And then there are also several other ways. The biggest one of it also is to never start your practice with a run through. Like never. So the thing is that it's a psychological thing. So the moment like you run through at the start of the practice, your mind gets a dopamine hit, right? Immediately. So then that subconsciously tells your mind that like, okay, you're kind of done with a major task now. So naturally your focus levels will just take a dip. So I'm always making a point never to run through at the start of practice. I always run through only at the end after I already work on all the things that I need to work. And then the question always gets asked to me then, like, how do you know what to work specifically? And of course, like for pianists, you always kind of know what to work, but to know it specifically, I always make sure I review the recording of the run through after practice. So at the end of the practice session, record. After that, playback, do notes. The next day, you basically already have the notes exactly what you need to practice, and then just execute. And practice to me is really like I try to take away as much emotions as possible out of the process, except the part when I'm running through and I'm doing like musical things. But like the process of practice itself is extremely logical and extremely lacking in emotion. And I think that's what really keeps it very efficient for me. Like I just make sure, okay, this point, I gotta do this thing, I gotta fix this thing, gotta check my movement. Is there a problem with the movement? Is there a problem with the phrasing? Like what's the exact problem? Find a problem, fix the problem, and then solidify the correct one. And usually the way to do it is just playing the correct thing in the same exact manner for about 7 times. That's the proven way that it kind of sticks into your muscle memory. So that's basically kind of what I do. Of course, there's like a lot more, but for the sake of the interview, these are like the main ones, I think.
Yeah, that's a wonderful tip. I actually never thought about how having a run through at the start of your practice session can affect the whole practice session. And honestly, I do run throughs like at the start of every practice session. So maybe I should change. Yeah.
Yeah.
After your successful 2025 performances in Berlin and Tokyo and your production of the Rachmaninoff Concerto Number 2, what are some exciting performances or artistic projects you're planning?
Well, this year is has so many things. I can't even keep track at this point, but at the start of the year, actually, it was kind of empty. Like it was an empty year, and then I was complaining actually to my wife. I was like saying like, "Oh, I'm not like doing much this year. It's kind of sad." And then like in February, I remember like my calendar just became full. But anyway, so I this year I had a few concerts. I had one at Esplanade already, and then a few more coming up. The one of the main highlights of this year in terms of performing and concert, I think is like one of the programs that I kind of have been wanting to do for a while now. And so that's happening in September. I'm doing the four Chopin ballades and then Scrubbing Fantasy. So that's a program I kind of wanted to put together for a while now. And then in terms of the other things, I have a masterclass coming up in Thailand on the 15 to 18 May, and I have 16 students there, which is going to be great. I just went to Japan to help out in a festival, and then also teach some master classes. And I taught some students from Toho, um, like Toho Gakuen, which is one of the music institutes there. And like this girl that was doing Greek concerto was just amazing. And then what else? What else do I have coming up? In in June, I'm organizing my own competition, and that's in June in Singapore. And then quickly in July, I'm going to the States in LA. I'm gonna be on faculty of one of the festivals there. And then in August I think is kind of chill. I might not have too much going on. And then September, October, I am doing a huge production for an artist that's coming to Singapore. And in fact, he just came to Singapore not long as well to do a performance of his solo arrangement of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. So his very own arrangement, and that was like an Asia premiere. Um, and then he's coming back to October. This is not officially released yet, but he's coming back in October to do a huge concert, one of the concertos, which I cannot disclose right now, but it's a Russian composer, and it's a huge production. It's gonna be like 60 over people in the orchestra, one of the biggest venues in Singapore. So it's gonna be amazing. And then in January, Greg will be here. In January, I'm having Greg come to Singapore. So it's exciting stuff. Yeah. I think those are the main highlights that's coming up.
Well, that's great. That's a really busy schedule. Um, yeah, I heard the Rachmaninoff Second Concerto concert was sold out.
Yeah. It was so last year's was sold out. Last year we did it with an orchestra. And then recently in March, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, in April, 2 or 3 weeks ago, uh he came to do a solo arrangement, which was just the piano, and that also pretty much sold out. So it was really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Transitioning from a late beginner to an international educator is a huge achievement. What have been the greatest challenges of your career so far, and how did you overcome them?
Um, that's so hard. Um, the biggest obstacles. I think there were so many obstacles, but I would think that the biggest obstacle at the beginning was like the financial struggles, just thinking about like if it would work out financially. And then eventually, of course, I think the whole time actually was just basically the level of my skill as a pianist and as a musician, because having the late start was a huge handicap. Like it was a huge problem. Like when I was in music university, the first year I remember basically every single module, I was like the worst student in the class. And like that was so discouraging. Like in oral class, sight reading class, like every single one, I remember I was just so bad at all of it. But like, and then because of that, I had to spend an additional like 1 to 2 hours every day just working on like these modules that none of the other people in the class was spending any time, because it was kind of easy for them. Like if you had a good foundation, basically, actually, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I was basically so far behind that I had to catch up on all of those, and at the same time, I got to catch up on my playing, and at the same time, I had to catch up on trying to build my career. But I think the turning point was actually in these things itself. The fact that I was so behind on everything put me under like a huge pressure, and like that huge pressure just made me work like crazy, and like an additional like 1,000 or 2,000% more than everyone else. And then I would think of things way ahead of other people. I would think of like how to build my career, like how I wanted my career to look like, and then start to think of like the actionable steps to take, and like of course making like decisions that sometimes call for more practical handling rather than emotional. Like for example, there was a period of time I really wanted to do even more like competitions. Like, I want to go for more competitions, go for more things. But like I know like that wouldn't be a good move for my career. Like I'm not that young anymore, especially like when I was graduating. And like in Singapore, we have to go for national service. So like in Korea, it's the same, right? So yeah, so like you're not that young basically when you're done with your bachelor's. And like I think I was about 25 or 26. And then to be competing at like international national level at that age would not be very wise, where I could be doing a lot more other things that would put me on the international stage. And so that was one of the things that I had to choose to forego. And there were a bunch of things like that as well, other things. But um I would think that that was one of the biggest turning points. And then also when my teacher mentioned to me that like the most important thing right now for you is just to make sure you can play well. um all the things can come later, and I think that advice helped me a lot to make like keep me focused on really just I have to improve my playing. And then at the same time, because I have a business background, back in my younger days, I went to like a business school in Singapore. We have like polytechnic, which is like where you get go for like diplomas. So I had a business diploma, and that helped me with like the business side of things, and like how to network, how to reach out to people, how to plan lots of business stuff. And that helped as well. So I think having these two skill sets side by side like helped a lot. Yeah.
That's an inspiring story. It's great that your efforts really paid off.
Yeah. I'm glad.
As the founder of BeSpokeArts, you're deeply involved in curating experiences. What is one thing we're not talking about in the classical music industry regarding the way we present concerts that you feel we really should be?
um Now I'm gonna speak with majority of the context of being in Singapore and the Singapore classical music scene, and then with some of it being international. But in Singapore, I think the biggest issue is like people want to watch, or like what's presented to people are only the top or like the well-known artists. And I think that's where also like I had a huge uh vision and connection with Spotlightfinderz, because when I read about what you guys do, like they're really like it's like kind of really similar to what I'm doing with BeSpokeArts, which I realized like in Singapore people are presented always with like Mata Agridge, like Christian Zimmerman, like Agrich's grandson, which was recently just here. Um, like people who are famous, and then so these people get a lot of spotlight, and they people want to watch these people, but they don't know like or maybe they're just not aware that there are so many more pianists and musicians that play with such unique sound, and I would say sound that is as good, not of course not comparing the same thing, because music is never exactly the same, but that play equally as well, and they are not heard just because they don't have like a famous reputation going on. And BeSpokeArts is basically one of the ways I'm trying to counter that. I'm trying to bring in like people I know whose sound are amazing, but yet at the same time not very well known in Singapore market yet. um that's one of the main things that people need to know, which is this. Like, there are many great musicians that you guys haven't heard yet. And what else? In also, I think especially in Singapore market, but I think this goes quite internationally, which is there is kind of an uptrend of people looking and searching for like note perfect performances. Like the perception of a good performance is slowly becoming more and more like like oh, there's no mistakes. um to the general public, at least. I'm not talking about like musicians, but like to the general public, like people are trying to look for concerts that have no mistake, and they think a concert is great when there's no mistakes. In live concerts, like the things we should be listening for should be different. Because like if people start to listen, or like they want to listen to just like no perfect performances, basically like a studio recording, right? You can just listen to that in a studio recording. Whereas live music, the most important thing is about the spontaneity, like how spontaneous an artist reacts to live crowd, the energy of a live crowd, the sound of the acoustic, and how they react to it, and how they redirect it into energy back into the audience. And I think that's like the most beautiful thing about live performance is like actually like the mistakes, the serendipity. Like you would never get a moment like that where you can just enjoy something spontaneous that's being produced. The same way, like even for like pop music, um, you will want to hear different, like almost renditions, right? Like you almost will never hear like a pop artist do a concert and then just sing the song the same way they would in the studio recording. That like no one would want to pay to watch you after a while because it's just like then I might as well listen to the recording, right? Yeah, so I think that's a huge thing that's like the classical audience, like the classical world is kind of moving towards, like no perfect performances and like very almost standardized kind of style of playing. Whereas like about 50 years ago, where like people like Joseph Hoffman, like Horowitz, Rubinstein, like these pianists, the golden era of these pianists, people didn't used to look for these things. You see, like most of the playing, if you listen to like Joseph Hoffman plays, is written with mistakes. Like there are mistakes every like other section probably. Uh, but that music contains some things very special that like music in current age doesn't have anymore, I feel. Or at least like uh, because of how the industry is being pushed towards because of competitions and all these things. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. You really pointed out the ways I prefer live performances over studio recordings, and it's great that our organizations have like aligned visions.
Yeah.
Will be the last question for today. Your teaching philosophy focuses on being a holistic musician rather than just playing the piano. What is the most important piece of advice you give to young musicians, especially to those who might be starting music late?
Hmm. Always think about the musical effect. For example, the one of like this the kind of examples I like to always give is, for example, the score says crescendo, ritardando, and okay, let's just say these two things. And then what does that create? So always think from the musical effect point of view. That basically just means almost like an allegando, right? To broaden, to get louder and to get slower, to make the music bigger, fatter, and fuller. But if you just think from the perspective of slowing down, getting louder, the effect will be different. So, being a holistic musician to me is kind of understanding or deciphering also what the music is trying to do and what the composer is trying to convey at a lot of times. One of my professors taught me this like when I was studying, and he often said like the sheet music, the music score is just like a recipe, like a blueprint, right? It's kind of weird, like if you become a seasoned musician or like a seasoned carpenter or something, and then you're still looking at the blueprint of something very basic and like it doesn't make sense. Because at that stage you should be looking at things more holistically, just like the same way as after you become more fluent with sight reading, you start reading note by note and you start looking at shapes and you start looking at what the music is doing, right? So I think being a holistic musician really means that to understand what that means is extremely important, because there are so many things that is the sheet music is being limited by, because it's just literally like visual notation that is limited by technology way in the past, and there would have been so many things that the composers would have tried to convey or try to relate to, but just basically not able to express based on the notation system. But they would have left clues about, and like from standard patterns, you would be able to recognize this, just as one of the ones I quoted before. I'm sure I have like better examples. I just can't remember right now. Um, Another one like very standard is when you see a cadential pattern in like Mozart or something, or like if you see harmonic rhythm increasing, oh, what does that mean? That means that something is building up and the composer wants to build to something to move towards it or to surprise you, to suddenly go away from it. And like these are like just basically the kind of moments that you need to realize these things rather than like taking on the micro sense of the music. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your insights beyond the surface of sheet music.
Thank you so much, Kunal.